Hi, and welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be our third video of All the Pretty Horses series, and this is going to be chapter 2. So much happens in chapter 2. It's crazy. Alright, so first things first, John Grady, he is proving he is a car expert. So he is on it, like nailing his job at the car lot. He's just like on fire. So much, in fact, that the boss, Don Hector, was like, boy, you doing good. And so he like promotes him, gives him his own like apartment, and he's like doing awesome. Like John Gray is selling the most cars, fixing the cars. He's doing great. Then, the boys have been working there for a little while, so they get like a nice little paycheck, like, woohoo. And so they go to the mall and they're like, yes, like, let's glow up here. Like, let's go from like our rags to riches. And so they like buy some new clothes and they're like looking good. Because they were wearing some old clothes, and they're like, it's time for a new look. It's time for an update. And so they, after that, or like while they're out, John Grady kind of like realizes like, oh my gosh, it was like a dance. And so he's like, oh, like I should invite Elronda to this dance. So like this girl, like his boss's daughter, so he's like, I'm gonna invite her. So he does. He buys a tuxedo, the shoes, the whole gig. And so the next night or so they go to the dance and they have a great time. It's just like love at first sight, like waltzing around, not really waltzing, but you know what I mean. And so they have a great time at this party, this dance. Things go awesome. And that's kind of it, like he takes her home, like bye, see ya, and like it's great. And then a few days later, it's like, your typical Tuesday, John Grady's out, like, test driving a car, so he's, like, rolling. And then he sees Alejandra on the street, so she's, like, driving too. And she, like, rolls down her window, she's like, hey! And she's like, hey, like, I want to drive that car. And he's like, what are you, like, no. And it was, like, a nice car, She's like, no, I want to drive the sports car. And he's like, what? And she goes, let me drive it back. She's like, it's just like right down the street. She's like, I'll drive back. You drive this one back. It's all good. And so he does. He switches cars with her. But, like some people see, and it was like, pretty sure he did not take that car out. I'm pretty sure she did not take that car out. So they had like switched cars. People like, what's going on here? But then that's kind of it. So like word kind of gets around, like, oh, maybe there's something there. Then Alfonso, which is Eleranda's great aunt. So, our pretty girl, it's her great aunt. She's like, hey, John Grady. She's like, you busy? And he's like, no, like, what do you want? And so she's like, come over to my house and like, let's like play some video games or whatever, And so they hang out. So he like goes over, they have a nice dinner, they're like playing some games, chilling. And then towards the end, she's like, hey, listen. He's like, her reputation is all she has. Like a woman nowadays, like that's all she's got. And she's like, so don't you dare like take that away from her. So she's basically saying like, hey, stay away from her, like, or else like I'm kind of a big deal around here. I'll take care of it. And so he's like, all right, cool. But unfortunately, pretty girl is not cool with this. And so she's like, sneaking out her window at night, going over to his apartment, and they're like spend the night together there, and they hook up, and they're like living the dream, And so they're just having a great time. Like John Grady, he's like chilling with his cars and working with his cars during the day, and then at night he's got his girl. So like he's living the dream, They glowed up, they got their new clothes, things are going awesome. They like go on car rides together, they swim together, like it's good. It's going good. Unfortunately, good does not last in these books, and that's a kind of a common theme that like evil is always present no matter what. And so the evil always comes in, and that like life and nature just isn't positive. Like it's just negative, like bad things happen. So the Popos show up, and they kind of talk to Don Hector about the boss, and they're just kind of like asking some questions, then they leave. Like, so it's like, oh, okay, no big deal. But then the boss, Don Hector, he's like, he knows. Everybody knows what's going on with John Grady and Alejandra. Everybody knows. They're just like keeping it on the down low. And so he kind of like invites John Grady in. He's like, oh, like you're doing awesome. Like, good job. Like, we're so glad we hired you. You're doing awesome. Like, awesome work. And so then he's like, oh, and like, just so you know, like, Alejandra, she like went to France for school. And he's like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, like, she's going to France, she's studying, she'll be back probably in a while, like, it's gonna be a long time, so, just curious, in case you were wondering, there you go. But later he find it out he lied, so, John Grady, like, doesn't see her for a while, but he then, like, realizes that she never went to her mom's house, or France, like they said she was going to, and she had just been, like, locked up in their house and like could not see him because they're like, Alfonso, the great aunt, was like, boy, I told you, stay away from her, otherwise like I'll take care of matters in my own hands. And they obviously didn't, and so she's like, fine, like she's locking up in here, like she's not going to see you. And so he like finds out, and they're like, oh my goodness. But before he really can do anything about that, like that night, the police show up again. So the Popo's here, and they just take Rollins and John Grady out of their beds, like just drag them out. No explanations, no nothing, and then the chapter ends. That's it. We don't know what happens after that. So, yeah, lots happens in this chapter. It's crazy. So be sure to like this video and be sure to come back and watch the next video for chapter 3 and find out what happens to our boy John Grady. Bye!